Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin tonight in Whitehorse, where an inquest will be held looking into deaths at the city's emergency shelter. In the last few years, at least 7 people have died while accessing services at the shelter. As Cheryl Kawaja tells us, this upcoming inquest will look into the deaths of 4 of the 7 people who have died.
The coroner has doubled the size of the inquest, adding the deaths of 2 more people that happened here at the emergency shelter in Whitehorse. It's been more than a year since the coroner first called for an inquest. In January of 2022, Cassandra Warville and Miranda Tissa Charlie both died of what the coroner found to be toxic illicit drugs. And now the inquest will include the death of 2 more people. Josephine Haggard's death was reported in February of this year, and Darla Skookum died in April. CBC reached out to the coroner. She was unavailable for an interview, but did respond via email. Heather Jones says the decision to include the 4 deaths in the inquiry is because the circumstances were similar in nature. She would have otherwise called for 4 individual inquests, she says. Jones acknowledges that the death of these 4 women are not the only ones to have occurred at the Whitehorse shelter over the past couple of years. Jones says there are at least 3 others, but she says the circumstances in those cases were somewhat different. She says the common issue is that all people were receiving services at the shelter at the time of their death, and that certainly will be part of the upcoming inquest. Now, Heather Jones also said she recognizes that for all those connected to these deaths, the pain and the emotion is raw and far-reaching. She says she sincerely hopes the decision to call this inquest will, with its findings and recommendations, somehow bring some comfort and perhaps changes that will save lives. CBC also reached out to Connective, the organization that runs the shelter. It says it is in full support of the inquiry and also notes that people accessing care at the shelter often have complex health needs exacerbated by the housing and substance use crisis. In an email to CBC, Connective says 405 Alexander represents just one piece of what must be a larger and more integrated response. The shelter also hopes to see services decentralized. The inquest is scheduled to happen next April. Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, Whitehorse.
3.5 years after a man died following a fatal fight in downtown Yellowknife, the man who killed him has been sentenced. The CBC's Jenna Delavich has more.
Mark Ryan called his mother 6 times the day he died. Daily calls were a regular occurrence for the 35-year-old before a fatal fight in downtown Yellowknife on April 2020. The other person in the fight was Dean McNeely, who wasn't charged until a year and a half after the incident. McNeely pleaded guilty earlier this year in July, avoiding what would have been a jury trial. The fight started as consensual, the defense lawyer said, but the violence went beyond, the Crown argued. Both lawyers recommended a 3-year jail sentence. Justice Shaner accepted the sentence. She said by law the judge was required to. The sentence includes time served, which means McNeely only has another 4 months left in jail. Ryan's mother and sister spoke at the sentencing. Ryan's sister Shauna cried when she talked about her children growing up without their uncle. And Ryan's mother, Evelyn Bishop, said her heart has been shattered since the death of her son. Ryan was described as kind and a friend to all. Jenna Delavich, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Nunavut Incorporated is giving $500,000 to hunters in the Kekatani region. Every year there's a bit left over in NTI's budget. This year it decided to use that money to support Kekatani hunters. The funds will go towards supplies like gas, food and nets, or equipment like canoes, engines, tents, guns and ammunition, as well as safety gear. Hunters who spend $2,000 a year on the eligible expenses can make a claim to be reimbursed. Anyone 16 and older and enrolled with NTI can apply.
You can call us at our Iqaluit office at 975 9400. You can request to speak with a Nunavut Harvest of Support Program Coordinator.
Funding is limited to one person per household. An independent board meant to review the giant mine cleanup in Yellowknife is holding a public meeting. It'll allow people to learn about long-term plans for the arsenic trioxide buried underneath the site. But the catch is that meeting is going to be held on the same evening as the Northwest Territories election. The CBC's Mahnur Mubarak has more.
The chair of the Giant Mine Oversight Board says the date for the public meeting was set before the election was postponed. Livingstone says rescheduling now would be difficult. Researchers from across Canada are expected to attend the conference, and their room and flight bookings were made before the election date was changed because of the wildfires.
It would have been a major delay in holding that meeting had we postponed it, because we would then have to go back to all the researchers and all the other folks and organize another time when people could get together. And it probably wouldn't have happened until in the new year.
Dr. Ken Frost is another board member. He too sees obstacles to changing the event.
Meeting space in Yellowknife is a challenge at the best of times. So getting all of that put together is often a significant challenge.
The public meeting is set to take place at the Explorer Hotel at 7:00 p.m. on November 14th. Mahnur Mubarak, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Igloolik is opening a new co-op grocery store to replace the one that burned down 2 years ago. The building was completely destroyed by the fire in January of 2021. Staff had to use the local hotel for offices and the church as a temporary store. Susan Gumenick is the president of the co-op's board of directors.
We went through a hard time, me and my coworkers. The orders that came in had to be sent back to the boat because we have no space, no storage.
Construction of the new store started last year. It'll include a new garage, meeting room, and offices. And the second floor will house a branch of the First Nations Bank. The Trudeau government's carbon tax plan has caused a firestorm in political circles. The government plan is implementing a 3-year carbon tax exemption for home heating oil to help offset the higher cost of that form of heat. But Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling for an exemption on all home heating until the next federal election. Marina von Stackelberg has more on the political stakes of this heated debate.
Rallying his caucus in Ottawa, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says it's fundamentally unfair. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is only exempting some Canadians from the carbon tax.
He divides by race, sexuality, vaccine status, and now region.
The temporary 3-year break applies to those who heat with oil. That fuel is used in only 3% of homes, found mostly in Atlantic Canada.
A divide and conquer strategy being condemned even by some New Democrats. The NDP in Saskatchewan and Alberta have come out against the 2 classes of citizenship that Justin Trudeau has imposed.
The opposition NDP in those 2 provincial legislatures support motions to demand all heating be exempt. Saskatchewan has threatened to stop collecting the carbon tax altogether and is preparing for possible legal action by the federal government.
I guess if it comes to that point where somebody's going to carbon jail, it likely will be me.
In Ottawa, the Conservatives are calling on the federal NDP to support a motion they'll introduce to demand all home heating be exempt.
Will Jagmeet Singh stand with provincial NDPers? Will he stand with the voters who put their trust in his MPs in places like Timmins and other cold northern communities? Or will he once again sell out working class Canadians in order to suck up to Justin Trudeau? That will be his decision.
Yes or no, will you support the Conservative motion to call for an exemption for all home heating?
We're discussing the Conservative motion in our team. We're discussing that still.
We need a credible carbon pricing plan, and Mr. Trudeau's blown the credibility of his carbon plan by trying to defend his MPs in Atlantic Canada without a national plan.
So would you support Pierre Poilievre's motion?
We shall see.
Whether the NDP decide to support this Conservative motion on Monday has the potential to drive a wedge between the New Democrats and the Liberals. The NDP have been supporting this Liberal minority government on key votes as part of their confidence and supply agreement. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
A correction now to a story we ran last night. We looked at races to watch in the upcoming NWT election. One of them was the Sawtooth. Our report said 2 people were running in that district, Polly Chinna and Daniel McNeely. In fact, there are 3. Delphine Pirot is also running, and our sincere apologies to Delphine Pirot for not including her name in that story. The Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador is in Nunatsiavut tonight. He's making his way along the north coast of Labrador, delivering long-awaited apologies to residential school survivors and their families.
With a heavy heart, I respectfully and humbly offer an apology to Inuit students of residential schools in Newfoundland and Labrador. As Premier, and on behalf of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, I extend this apology to the students for all that you experienced while in residential schools, and to all Labrador Inuit. We are sorry.
That was Andrew Fury in Postville. It's not the only stop he's making. There are ceremonies scheduled throughout the rest of the week. The province and the Nunatsiavut government are inviting former students and their families or anyone impacted by residential schools to attend.
We only been here for 2 years. We come from the city in Brisbane, and it was a pretty horrifying experience. Yeah, never seen anything like it.
2 wildfires continue to burn in eastern Australia, in New South Wales and Queensland. At least 2 people have died and dozens of homes have been destroyed. A fire is burning out of control in the town of Tenterfield, threatening almost 7,000 residents. The flames burnt a train track, and a fire service vehicle ended up overturning by the side of the road. Farther north, residents were ordered to leave their homes while crews battled flames there. More than 50 houses have been lost to fires in Queensland and northern New South Wales in the past 2 weeks. Australia recorded its driest ever September on record. Extreme weather conditions like that are also here in Canada, and in locations across Canada, they've taken a toll on trees. Fires, drought, and flooding have left a mark, harming many trees, even some that look healthy from the outside. The CBC's Lawrence Watt went to Vancouver's Stanley Park to learn more.
It's easy to forget about the roots, where we can inspect the base of a trunk and look for decay or signs of mushrooms growing on the trees. We can see different growth patterns in the tree. So that's for the root section. For the upper canopy, there are abnormal growth patterns, damage, decay that can happen in the tree that to the untrained eye might look like a cool tree, but to an arborist we could see it as an early sign of decay that's setting in. With an obvious dead tree that's 100% dead, it's super obvious that that's dead. To the untrained eye, you're like, well, my tree used to be alive, now it's dead. With zombie trees, loss of foliage is not an indication that these defects are present. So just today we had 2 trees that failed on people's houses, and both of them had a full canopy of foliage. There was root rot or decay in the root, and the tree failed at the base. So those are perfect examples of trees that are zombie trees that to the untrained eye they would look completely fine. It was green, it was fine, but those are the ones when they fail that would cause these problems. Different trees have different growth patterns that can cause failure. Hemlocks, Douglas firs have very long overextended limbs, and the structure is supported through the bottom part of the limb, and as a result, when they get loaded with wind and snow, there's a higher likelihood that those branches are going to fall. So this maple tree, there's decay that's starting to set into this portion right here. So given that the decay is at the base of the tree, this is an indication that if there was a failure, there's a high likelihood it would be at this point. they're forced to use their stored energy to combat the drought, and they're unable to produce excessive stored energy to fight back against pests, against storms, against other things. So we'll see one of two things happen: either catastrophic failure, or we'll see a abrupt death. At the end of the day, if you have a tree on your property, it's your responsibility to manage that, and having a professional come in and take a look at it is one of the best things you can do.
Johnny wanted to go back home. It was 1,000 kilometers away. They forced him to go to the Indian residential school. More than 150,000 of us children had to go. They wanted to change us.
Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name.
Hallowed be your name.
Thy kingdom come,
Thy kingdom come,
thy will be done.
Thy will be done. Kill the Indian and the child. It's been called cultural genocide. I survived residential school. My brother Johnny did not.
Chani Wenjack was one of thousands of children who died due to Canada's residential school system. More than 80,000 survivors and their families still live with its legacy today.
I'm Kathleen Goldhar, host of a new podcast, Crime Story. Every week, we bring you a different crime, told by the storyteller who knows it best. All the ins and outs.
It was a story of murder, of exploitation of a schoolgirl.
You got one witness who can't be found. You got another witness who has changed his entire story.
I remember just this feeling of like complete disbelief.
Crime Story, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
You are constantly on the move, and so are we, making sense of the moments that matter together.
Looks like things are maybe winding down.
Asking what, why, when.
To the center of the biggest stories, meeting the people living them.
Thank you for letting us be here. What's your situation?
Making sense of our world.
How are we going to be part of this solution?
With you and for you.
Connectedness, groundedness.
I'm Adrienne Arsenault. This is The National.
You're not a millennial.
Yeah, well, Dr. Dre's not a doctor. I feel like such an imposter.
You need money to survive.
He had something to hide.
Try typing with your thumbs. What do you call it?
It's called a BlackBerry.
Huh.
We call them crackberries.
There's a serial killer on the loose.
2 attacks in a week.
Go on. Everybody's got something to hide.
We're not gonna be here forever, right? Makes me want to make some changes.
Your family can't take much more.
It's gonna have to be 2 people, Liza. You think you can do that? I think I can.
I feel so much pressure to, like, not do the thing that I know will make everything.
Yeah, dog!
An absolute classic.
All right.
Let's go! Yeah!
This is The National.
I want my children home where they should be.
You'll go to jail if you don't sign.
The Nunavut Liquor and Cannabis Commission has lost about $500,000 worth of beer and wine. The alcohol was in sea cans that fell off a barge and into Frobisher Bay. 12 out of the 24 sea cans that went overboard were going to the beer and wine store. The alcohol that fell in is being sent back for disposal.
The good news story is that most of it was recovered, even though it's not saleable, so it's at least not floating out there in the bay. And the losses were not extremely huge, but they're all replaceable.
Young says the commission is working on an insurance claim. He was unable to say if the losses will affect prices at the store this coming year. Siksika Nation in Alberta is experiencing a housing crisis that has lasted for generations. To address the need for homes, the First Nation is using 3D printing to build a housing complex for those in need. Experts say it's the largest project of its kind in the country. Take a look.
We got together and we decided to kind of explore the potential of 3D printing technologies to try to alleviate the ongoing housing need on reserve.
It's intended for those in have the most acute housing needs, so people who are either currently homeless or at risk of being homeless.
Earlier this year, Siksika Housing put out their short-term housing strategy that identified the need for approximately 1,000 homes to be built in the next 10 years. We incorporated a series of design features that tie this project directly to Siksika culture, to Blackfoot culture.
It can be very tough to get skilled labor out here to help build housing, which is why you see a lot of prefabricated homes out on the nation. The machine takes away some of that from us, and we essentially have the assistance of a robot to help build the houses for us.
Every unit is going to be about 60 feet by 40 feet and contain 4 individual housing units. A regular house built with regular construction materials and systems can take several months to be built. A 3D printed house can take weeks.
We intend to have the homes finished by about the end of March in 2024.
Everybody is excited to see how this is going to play out. The biggest news was when the scaffolding was going up, we were going to get a concert in town, right? Because
Halloween might be over, but there are still ways to enjoy those pumpkins you carved. In Yellowknife, for example, Pumpkin Lane is back. That's when residents are encouraged to bring their carved pumpkins to Frame Lake Trail, where they'll light the way from tonight until Saturday. In British Columbia, one rescue group is going a different route. They're taking the gourds and feeding them to the pigs.
It's probably Christmas for the piggies. We go around and collect up everybody's jack-o'-lanterns, pumpkins, anything that would otherwise go in the garbage, and it will feed the pigs for probably a good part of the winter.
What makes pumpkins such a good food for pigs?
I don't know what it is, they just love them. And for me, if they're free, we will take them.
We go around, we have the kids out for the day. They usually hop out of the truck and start running and grabbing pumpkins, and we load up, the back of my truck probably 2 or 3 times a day.
If we get a nice good cold winter, sometimes they bury in the snow, but they'll stay frozen in the backyard, which is nice because I don't have a lot of freezer space. And then through the winter, we'll just light a fire in the backyard and roast up some pumpkin, and they all come out, stand by the fire, and eat away till their bellies are full.
Sounds like a pretty good piggy bonfire. That is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. we leave you with a look at fireworks from Norman Wells, a beautiful light show celebrating Halloween in the community. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
When I arrived in Canada, there were not many women who looked like me. Not everyone was welcoming. But my husband made a new life here in this distant country. And I thought here I could belong. And many others could too. As the years went on, our town flourished. Our community worked together and took care of each other. Our children grew up with a true sense of belonging. Here in Baldi, we built our home, and we wanted others to do the same.
Established by South Asian immigrants in 1917, the mill town of Baldi, British Columbia was one of Canada's first inclusive multicultural communities.
Think you're a better driver when you're high? Think again. No alcohol, no drugs, no victims. A message from Mad Canada.
What Canadian animal is bigger than a school bus?
Eats tiny critters but doesn't have any teeth. Likes to swim in cold ocean waters in the summer.
And feeds milk to its baby calf.
If you guess the right whale, you're correct. These giant whales live in busy parts of the ocean, so people need to be careful when driving boats near them. To learn more about the North Atlantic right whale, visit our website at hww.ca.
Just remain calm. Grab the head.
You grab the head. Have you ever dealt with something like this before?
No.
It's on me now.
Animal Control. Watch all episodes now.
I want my children home where they should be.
You'll go to jail if you don't sign.
There's gonna come a time you'll feel the darkness. You don't let them win.
Every week, the
issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
Some people have lost everything.
Join me for Rosemary Barton.
We have an incredible show lined up for you tonight.
Wow!